Hey, it's Ashley and I'm back with another haircut tutorial. Today we're going to be doing a number 1 on the sides, faded up to a 4, and we are going to shear blend in the top, and it's going to be a pushback look. If you want to learn more about how to fade quickly and efficiently, please continue to watch this video. I am first going to begin by removing bulk of the hair with my number 4. This is going to allow me to see where I am fading at whenever I continue my fade at the bottom, and work myself up to this 4. It's going to allow me to leave a lot of weight on my parietal ridge and some density in the crown that I'm going to need for later to blend everything together really seamlessly. This client does have some pretty straight hair, as you can see. When I am fading up with that 4, it's just kind of coming right back out at me at the top of that. So I want to be able to blend that in later on. That's why I didn't go in straight with my 1. It is a little overgrown. So I want to make sure that we are cleaning up the area before we get in. But I did not go down below the parietal ridge and the occipital bone because I'm not going to be fading there with my number 4. I'm going to be going in with more of a 3 or a 2. So starting with my 1, I am going to pull that ear back so I can get that little curve behind it really easily. And I am making sure I'm getting a really clean area right there. Now to keep this one low, I'm going to use the bottom part of my clippers and go on the curve of the head shape behind the ear. And then to meet that curve, I'm going to start back here and work myself up and then slowly kind of work towards the front of the hair as I get my line cleaned up. So I'm kind of going in, creating my line, making sure that I am leaving this weight right here so I can blend in really easily whenever I'm coming off of this occipital bone. And then I go in and I clean up what I'm actually cutting with my number 1, because right here I am fading with my number 1, and whenever I'm going into this hair at the bottom, I am actually cutting with my number 1 and removing all of this hair to make it all a number 1 length. So I remove and then I fade and then I go back and really get everything down into that number 1 guard so that it's all the same length. Because sometimes if you're not connecting your clippers and your teeth all the way in, like right here, you can see I'm removing this hair. I am digging and I'm going back and forth so that I can make sure I'm getting all of this hair removed for him, and it's all going to be a number 1. Sometimes people aren't connecting all the way in certain areas and they're leaving patches. And we definitely don't want to do that. So I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to go back and make sure this fade line is really nice and even. So I didn't really pay attention to that before. And so I go and clean that up. And then I go back in, open my 1, and start to fade it with a 1.5. And so now I'm not really focusing on making sure everything is going to be the same length. I'm focusing on fading this weight line up to that number 4. So I'm just going to go in with my 1 opened, which is a 1.5, and I'm going to tap that line just about a finger width. So then I'm going to repeat on the other side, and I'm making sure this whole time that I am double checking myself in my mirror so that I am making sure my fade is even on both sides. And I step back behind my client and also double check from the back of his head that the curvature of my fade is very symmetrical. So now I'm going in with a 1.5 guard, and I'm going to start fading it with it closed and just tapping another little bit into that 1.5 opened. And this is just going to start a really seamless fade. So I normally hold my finger on the back of my clipper guards to make sure that my clipper guard is secure and does not pop off. Now, as you can see in this haircut, the dip of my fade that I am working with, so I am going and removing a little bit more so with my 1.5 closed on that dip in the parietal ridge, because I want to give it more of a look that there is no dip here. So you can see I opened that 1.5 once I got here, and I'm going to work it on the parietal ridge itself, and then going back to the occipital bone area and that dip, and I'm just going to work this weight out of here. And so the 4 is going to give me almost an illusion that there is no dip in the back of his head, which is going to create a super nice look for his head shape. And this is really the goal. We are trying to shape our clients' hair to fit their head and face best. So I'm going in with that 1.5 open, and I'm just going to repeat the same thing on the other side. I do turn my clippers to the side and fade that way. And this is all in real time. I am working this line out and just balancing my clippers kind of to go right up into the crown of the head. Now I'm going to move on to my number 2 guard. And you can see that weight line, and that's what I'm going to target first. The sides are really blended pretty well. I am going to just double check them, but creating that density on that number 4 in the parietal ridge area and the crown really helps take some time out of your fade. So you can see I'm going to work this weight out of the back of the head, and this line is going to kind of seamlessly disappear for him. Now I'm going to open my clippers, and I'm going to repeat the same thing, just working it up to that number 4 and making sure I'm kind of keeping more of a square shape here because his hair is so straight. We want it to square on the sides and then round more towards the top for that push back, which I will show you in a second. So here I'm going in with that 2 opened, and I'm just working it up on the parietal ridge of the head. Right here where it starts to dip down, I'm kind of digging more, and then as it gradually rides up the head, I am kind of making my clippers more square to the head than digging in and going with the head shape itself. Now I'm going to go in with my number 3 guard, and this will help me finish off the fading part of this haircut. I'm going in with that 3 close to fade right into my number 2 open, which is a 2.5. And I am just gonna continue this square fade planing off of the parietal ridge. And you can see I am just keeping that same motion going back and forth over myself again and again so that we can get a really nice clean fade, making sure everything's being cut down to the same length. After I've got everything faded up to where I know I can blend really well with my shears, I will go in and start my trimmer work before I do any wet work. So I always do my clippers, my trimmers, and then my shears. So during my trimmers is kind of when I decide if I'm going to taper my client's neckline out or not. I normally prefer to taper out a client's neckline because the grow out time is a lot better for them. They don't have to feel like their neck grows out faster than their haircut, and it just looks really nice and seamless to me as a barber. So here I'm doing some trimmer work, and I am going and using my comb to really get any stragglers that are kind of hanging out on the hairline and cleaning it up really nice. When trimming behind the ears and the neck, I like to follow the curvature of the natural hairline from behind the ear and then work my way down. This normally helps you keep a really even lineup on both sides following the client's natural pattern, and then you can always step back and double check it. And here I am just tapering out the client's neckline by going in with my clippers closed, halfway open, and then fully open. And if you missed that, you can watch it again. And then I am grabbing my half guard just to make sure it's seamless, and I really didn't want to run my clippers opened on my client's irritation behind the neck just because I don't think that would be a good idea for him. So I chose to do a half guard, even though I could have just kind of pivoted my half on my clippers out anyway. So that's a trick if you don't want to cause any irritation. Use a guard on the back of the neck, even a half guard to do your taper, not fully closed. So I clean off the client before I start to do any wet work and check for any extra neck hairs that are left behind or underneath my cape that I didn't see. And then before closing the cape, I do go ahead and clean off the neck. Starting in with my wet work, I am going to spray down my client's hair to about 80% wet. I don't like hair to be fully soaked just because it kind of takes out the natural shape of the hair. So I'm going to go in and cut my bangs just because this is a straight haircut and his bangs were kind of overgrown. I'm mostly going to give a rough cut for these bangs and work myself from the middle and then to both sides. And I'm really just doing this to kind of get them out of my way and cut down a little bit so that I can go ahead and blend everything together and not worry about them kind of being in my way. Now that we have a nice length for a pushback, I will go ahead and start blending in my sides. I am using my comb and I am taking the hair and working it towards the client's face while it is pushed back. This is going to allow me to cut my corners really seamlessly so that when the client pushes his hair back, it will all just fall right into place without any weight or corners coming back. And this will take some of that square shape off from above the parietal ridge. And then I'm going to continue to work this corner in this haircut up with my scissor over comb. And using the comb, I am keeping a kind of slanted shape with a 45-degree angle. I want to leave weight at the top. So I am cutting whatever is short at the bottom, and then I'm going in and double checking myself by putting it parallel to the head and working it back up in that direction. So you can see I'm going in and double checking those bangs. Since he pushes it over to this side, I'm going to point cut them and make sure that they match really nice over here. And then going in and blending this side in, I'm going to start again with pushing the hair back in the shape the client likes to wear it, and then working that comb and shear over towards the client's face in a 45-degree angle, leaving my longest length at the top and my shortest length that I'm cutting to meet at the bottom. This will blend everything in and keep the head shape nice and square and then curve with it at the top. So then going in and blending the cowlick for the client, I am making sure that I am cutting off any corners and just working that shape up. Now that I have my corners blended out, I am going to start cutting this top length down a little bit. And I'm going to begin that by starting more towards where he starts that part line at and just nipping the length that I cut off of those bangs, bringing those bangs length up and creating this mohawk kind of guide towards the back of the crown. And then I'm going to start grabbing and kind of leaving some length out so we can go ahead and keep that pushed back look really nice and seamless. So I'm just going to point cut this top so it has that nice messy vibe, and I'm going in from that length that I just cut in that mohawk and just matching everything up. After I do this, I can go in and make sure that these sides are completely blended and kind of nip that little squareness off of the head shape. As you can see right here, I'm taking that corner and just meeting them together. And then I kind of keep this motion as I go through that corner just so that it's really nice and seamless blended. And I'm going to kind of check for any detail work before we wash. Now going in with the pomade or a wax, I'm going to make sure I'm getting this product all the way down to my client's roots on damp hair, and then brushing it back. And as I'm brushing, I am double checking my haircut, making sure that everything looks really nice and seamless. And then we are finished. I hope you enjoyed this video. Here is my before and after. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, please comment what you learned. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hope to see you back soon. Thank you.